degrees Celsius. Saturday then turns into a day of sunshine and showers for the vast majority of us, particularly for Northern Ireland and Western Scotland. That's where we'll see the most frequent showers, potential for those to turn heavy with some hail and thunderstorms as well. With those blustery winds, though, across all areas, those showers will be pushing through relatively quickly, so still some sunny spells around and in that sunshine, climbing to highs between 19 and 24 degrees Celsius. That main low pressure centre stays with us through Sunday as well. Some heavier showers for southern Scotland down into northern England, but we're then focusing our attention on this area of rain that's going to start pushing its way in from the southwest. Again, got to watch the exact timings of that, but certainly could turn quite damp for Wales, southwest England later on. Further showers into the new week as well. That's all for now. Bye-bye.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. On tonight's show, we have Alex Burgott, MP, Stephen Pound, ex-Labour MP, the Gentleman of Parliament, Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. We also have Lizzie Cundy, who's a socialite, TV presenter, media star, 80s pop icon David Van Day, and a legend in his own lunchtime, Gary the Cabbie. And also tonight, TV First, we've got the yes or no quiz with two politicians. But first, let's go to the news.
Good evening, I'm Tatiana Sanchez in the GB Newsroom.
Plans to move 2,000 migrants to RAF Scampton in Lincolnshire have been delayed until October. Officials had indicated the first group would begin arriving at the former airbase in August. It comes as the Home Office is reportedly preparing to erect marquees to accommodate 2,000 people at the Manston airfield in Kent by the end of August. There are warnings it could trigger legal challenges based on inhumane treatment. The ultra-low emission zone is set to be expanded in London after a High Court ruled the plan is lawful. Legal action was brought by 5 Conservative-led councils. It means drivers will pay a £12.50 daily fee if their vehicles do not meet the required emission standards. A spokesperson for the AA says the ruling is hugely disappointing, but it hopes London will follow other cities by adopting measures to reduce the impact on those who can't afford it. The London Mayor Sadiq Khan says there will be support.
The decision to expand the ultra-low emission zone was a difficult one, not one I took lightly, but it's essential. Next week, there'll be a massive expansion of the support we give to families, to businesses and charities. As it is, 96% of cars in inner London are compliant. 9 out of 10 cars in outer London are compliant. They won't pay a penny more from August 29th, but we'll see the benefits of cleaner air. But I'll carry on listening to see what more support we can give.
The Chancellor says no decisions have been made on compensation for victims of the contaminated blood scandal. Thousands of people contracted HIV and hepatitis after being given contaminated blood products in the 1970s and 80s. Jeremy Hunt told the official infected blood inquiry today the injustice is being addressed.
We totally understand the urgency of this situation. You know, we recognise the fact that, as I think I wrote in a letter before I was Chancellor, that one person is dying approximately every 4 days, and that there is a need for justice to be as quick as possible for what has been a terrible scandal.
A 14-year-old boy has been arrested following a hit and run in Walsall. A 7-year-old girl was taken to hospital in a critical condition. She later died of her injuries. Police say the incident happened shortly after 7 o'clock yesterday evening. They're now looking for a blue and black motorcycle. The teenager remains in custody. And NatWest has appointed a law firm to conduct an independent review following the closure of Nigel Farage's bank account. It comes as the banking group announces profits of £3.6 billion for the first half of the year. Both the group's CEO, Dame Alison Rose, and Coutts boss Peter Flavel resigned this week. TV, online, DAB+ radio and on the TuneIn app. Now it's back to Lee Anderson's Real World.
In just a few months' time, young men and young women from all over the country were going off to university, a place of learning. They're going to have a good time, they're going to work hard and hopefully get better careers. But in the meantime, in our universities, there are a certain group of people who are trying to influence and indoctrinate our young people. And this happened with my son about 10 years ago. He went to uni, he went to Sheffield. And I didn't see him for months. He came back, you know, many, many months later, and he came back different. He got long hair. He got a beard, his clothes were different, a different attitude, different outlook on life. And I thought, my goodness, Harry, what's happened to you? He says, Dad, he sat down with me on the settee, he put his arm on my hand. He says, Dad, I've been away for a few months now, and I've come back, and I'm not the Harry that went away all those months ago. I'm different now, I'm a different person. I've found out who I actually am. And he held my hand, looked into my eyes and says, Dad, I've got to tell you something about myself. He says, I am. And I thought, Harry, just get on with it. You know, you're my son, I love you, whatever you are. He says, Dad, I'm a vegetarian. Shocking, absolute shocking. Let that be a warning to you. So, joining me now is Parliament's most upstanding gentleman, the Right Honourable Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. Jacob, thank you. It's a great pleasure. It makes a little bit of a difference from me interviewing you. The tables have turned. The roles or reverse. Look, I've been an MP for 3.5 years. And the route for me to become a Conservative MP was quite simple. I was very, very lucky. I was in the right place at the right time. I'd only been in the party 18 months, and I was at that place, at the madhouse, I sometimes call it. But you, Jacob, you've come from a different background. I was born on a council estate. He was on a country estate, as I always say. You've got Bob or two from different backgrounds, but people would assume automatically that you've had the golden ticket, that you've just waltzed into Parliament because of your wealth and where you're from and what school you went to, but it wasn't like that, was it?
No, it wasn't. But you've made more impact in 3.5 years than most people make in political careers of 35 years. So it's what you do when you get there that I think matters so much. But no, I applied for lots and lots of seats. I started off in Central Fife, which was the last seat to have returned to communist. So my chances there weren't very good. But they were absolutely charming to me. When I knocked on doors in Central Fife, the standard reaction was we didn't know the Tories normally stood here. And what was so interesting about that was I learnt so much, because if you're fighting a seat that you can't possibly win, you've got time. When you're fighting a seat that you are likely to win, you've got somebody tugging you by the sleeve saying, you've got to go to the next door, you've got to go to the next door. There's nothing like that in Central Fife, so I had the chance to talk to people. And the great thing about politics is when you knock on people's doors, quite a few of them willing to tell you about their lives, how difficult they are, what they're trying to do. And that's what you learn from and how you get to understand what the issues, the problems are that politicians in Westminster need to deal with.
So, Jacob, a wealthy man, a successful man, a great family, a great life, a great career in politics. What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Well, politics is enormously interesting and important. I think that's what does it as a combination. That I don't know about you, but I've found that the most important thing I do as a politician is actually the constituency work. Yeah. Now, that's not to say I don't enjoy speaking in Parliament and all the things that go with that. But every so often, a constituent comes to see you whose life has been turned upside down by failures of the state, and by writing some letters, you can right a wrong. And those are the things of which I feel most proud as I look back on the political career I've had so far.
So it's public service?
Public service is very important, but it's fun. So I wouldn't be too pious about this. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, look, what I'm doing is public service and it's my great duty and so on and so forth. That is an element of it. But the back and forth of politics, the taking on our socialist opponents, taking on issues that matter in the hope of getting them changed, being on GB News and discussing the issues of the day. This is also a fun and enjoyable part of politics.
We're from different backgrounds, we're slightly different characters. I get a little bit et up sometimes and wear my heart on my sleeve, but nothing seems to rattle you, Jacob. How do you cope with that?
You're about to have a fight with Steve Bray, aren't you? Is this going
I was sort of hoping you was going to step in. Queensberry rules, obviously. Right. But how do you remain calm, Jacob?
Well, I think that in politics remaining calm helps you win the argument. That if your opponent gets really angry and is shouting, then particularly if it's being broadcast, people are sensible, people are rational, and they think, who is that shouty person? It's the feedback we get on the programmes that we do, that if you're in an interview and you interrupt the whole time, people stop listening, and then we get complaints saying, why did you have that person on, and why did you have all that interruption? If you just wait and answer the question, then people are willing to listen and at least give you a chance to get your argument across.
So you're a big cricket fan. I know you love your cricket. I come from a cricketing county, as you know. We've got our famous sons are Harold Larwood and Bill Vose, but you're in Somerset.
I got a miniature cricket bat for my son's 11th birthday, signed by Vose and Larwood.
Wow.
Which he was absolutely delighted by, because we'd just been watching, thanks to you, the Bodyline.
So, cricket is a game played, not necessarily by gentlemen, but it's played in a gentlemanly way. Do you think Parliament could learn from that?
That's a very good question. The thing about cricket is that we talk a lot about how gentlemanly it is, but the greatest cricketing hero ever, W.G. Grace, always used the rules to his maximum ability.
As did Jardine.
As did Jardine. Yeah. And that cricket's always had this interesting balance between this image of cucumber sandwiches and a nice slice of chocolate cake and some of the very, very best players who have always been very competitive. And I think there's a lesson in that for politics, that politics is competitive. It's about who is going to run the country. What we're doing in Parliament matters, we shouldn't be surprised that Prime Minister's questions is contentious, because what they're debating is who should lead the country, and that matters for people's daily lives.
So I guess, at the moment, Jacob, political heroes. Who is your hero and why?
Oh, political heroes, it goes back to this period. It is Pitt the Younger is a very important figure in British history, that the victory in the Napoleonic Wars essentially protects freedom and liberty and our way of life. And the great war leaders, so Pitt the Younger, Churchill, and to some extent Lloyd George, are the ones who make a real fundamental difference to how the country is governed for decades and decades, because otherwise you'd have something imposed from outside.
So when we walk through Westminster Hall, through the old chamber, we see these characters, we see statues, and even today, as I walk through those rooms, I still get that feeling that I'm so proud, I feel privileged, I feel honoured. But you're an historian as well, aren't you? You like your history. So how does it make you feel walking past all these political giants from hundreds of years ago?
Well, the best part of the Palace of Westminster is Westminster Hall. Because if you think, that was built in the reign of William Rufus. So since 1100, just before, every minor political figure in English and then British and then UK-ish history has been through Westminster Hall. That is a phenomenal link to our history and to the personalities of our history. Think of things that went on there. Thomas More tried in Westminster Hall. Charles I tried in Westminster Hall. Richard II deposed in the hall where he'd just put in the roof by the House of Commons sitting in Westminster Hall. I mean, it is an incredible link to our history and the oldest bit of the palace, and I just find it very exciting.
And then you're next door into the old chamber, and you think that there are some laws that we adhere to today which were passed in that very room like hundreds of years ago.
That's absolutely right. I think the most important ancient law is the Act of Tallage, and the Act of Tallage requires that the consent of the Commons is given to new taxation. And this is the 1290s. And that law still takes effect. The House of Commons has to approve new taxation.
Jacob, thanks. That's been fascinating. What a fascinating discussion with... I talk about political heroes, but Jacob Rees-Mogg, Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, is one of my political heroes, absolute legend and a gentleman. And thanks, Jacob.
Thank you.
So, Jacob, before you go, I want to say a massive welcome to former Labour MP Stephen Pound, who's going to join us on this new section of the show, which is the yes or no quiz. Now, people get a little bit fed up, as you know. Politicians not answering a straight question, not saying a yes or no, they tend to waffle on and on. So the yes-no quiz basically is I ask you 5 questions, you both get the same questions, and you have to answer a yes or a no. If you abstain, then that could be seen as a little bit cowardly. And be warned, you may get a white feather through the post at some stage from me. So I'm going to fire with the first question to you, Jacob. Can a woman have a penis?
No.
Stephen, can a woman have a penis?
No.
OK. Next question. More grammar schools, yes or no?
Yes.
No.
No. Clear answers. Do you agree with the Rwanda scheme, Jacob?
Yes.
Stephen?
No.
Clear answer. Do you think Sir Keir Starmer would make a good Prime Minister?
No.
Well, I think it's a very good question.
That's an abstain.
Absolutely yes.
100%?
100%.
Well, that's a definite yes. And final question, Jacob. Taking the knee, yes or no?
No, no, no.
3 no's.
Not anymore.
Is that a no or a yes?
No.
Is that a no? Well, I mean, that's very interesting. We've got 5 answers from 2 politicians. All straightforward answers, yes or no. They didn't shirk their responsibility to answer. Very brave of you guys in this day and age, because sometimes politicians do dodge the answers. But Jacob, I'll come to you first. You know, that was quite simple. And sometimes, like I say, people do get frustrated with politicians, especially on question time, not answering. But do you think there is a case for having more yes or no's, or should you always qualify your answers?
Lots of things are subject to nuance. I think there are 2 different issues, actually. You can answer the question more than by saying yes or no, as long as you get round to answering the question eventually. Yes or no is sometimes too narrow.
Yeah. Stephen?
Well, it's the old, when somebody says to you, when did you stop beating your wife? There's no answer to that, is there? Well, if you say yes or no, you've had it. So, absolutely right. I hate to agree with Jacob, but he's right.
Yeah, but the thing is, Stephen, since I've become to know you, you're actually one of the reasons, people, MPs, ex-MPs like yourself in the Labour Party, was one of the reasons I joined the Labour Party. I thought all the Labour MPs were like you.
I'm sorry, I'm responsible for Lee Anderson.
Well, no, not directly. I think my mother and father's got something to do with that. But that side, I thought, that traditional Labour Party, their working class values, boys and girls that have come up the hard way, done proper jobs.
Lee, the reality is there's far too many people in this country who overcomplicate things. And it's because it's about their ego. And partly it's because politicians hate to give offence. They're terrified about actually being on one side of the fence or the other.
I've got to say, we are a broad church. Look at Jacob, where he's come from, where he's ended. And I'm in the same place. So it's an absolutely wonderful place to work.
Well, I think what that means is that GB News is marginally better than the House of Commons.
Well, a great sentence to finish on. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Jacob.
Cheers.
That's the end of that. Look, we're going back in the day with the 80s pop icon David Van Day.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Hope you were able to enjoy some of the sunnier spells we did see around today, but into the weekend there is the increasing chance that we see some showers, and that is all thanks to this area of low pressure that is pushing its way in from the northwest. Those isobars squeezing together, so will turn quite blustery into the weekend as well, and those frontal systems that you saw bringing in swaves of showers. First thing during the overnight period for parts of western Scotland down into northern England and Wales. Also the potential for another band pushing across southeast England. Just some uncertainty in regards to the positioning of that one, but definitely some heavy forces of rain possible first thing on Saturday. Not going to be a cold night at all, actually pretty mild in the southeast, but slightly fresher further towards the west, lows of around 12 to 13 degrees Celsius. Saturday then turns into a day of sunshine and showers for the vast majority of us, particularly for Northern Ireland and Western Scotland. That's where we'll see the most frequent showers, potential for those to turn heavy with some hail and thunderstorms as well. With those blustery winds, though, across all areas, those showers will be pushing through relatively quickly, so still some sunny spells around, and in that sunshine, climbing to highs between 19 and 24 degrees Celsius. That main low pressure centre stays with us through Sunday as well. Some heavier showers for southern Scotland down into northern England, but we're then focusing our attention on this area of rain that's going to start pushing its way in from the southwest. Again, got to watch the exact timings of that, but certainly could turn quite damp for Wales, southwest England later on. Further showers into the new week as well. That's all for now. Bye-bye.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the people's channel and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
On Mark Dolan tonight, the decision to cancel Nigel Farage's bank account is the tip of the woke iceberg. The radical left, who millions of Labour supporters also can't stand, are infecting all our institutions. Welcome to hell. In my Take at 10, my reaction to the shocking audio recording of Mr. Nice Guy TV chef James Martin yelling and swearing at his staff. My Mark Meets guest is football legend and freedom campaigner Matt Le Tissier. Plus TV legend Sue Cook, my top pundits and the papers. We're live from 9.
Now then, my next guest is showbiz legend. He was in a group called Guys and Dolls in the 70s, and then Dollar, and then later in the 80s, Bucks Fizz. He needs no introduction. It's David Van Day. What a legend you are, David.
Well, what I'm saying, I think you're giving your age away there, especially with Guys and Dolls, because that was 1975.
I was seven at the time.
Yep, we're top of the charts.
Yep.
With There's a Whole Lot of Loving Going On. That was the track.
You still got it?
Yeah, thank you. The check's in the post. Look, Bases Rollers were #1.
Yeah.
We couldn't get them off.
Did you wear the flares?
Yeah, we were catsuits.
Yeah, catsuits.
You know, yeah, they zip up here, all one piece.
A bit awkward though when you go to the toilet.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
So I mean, listen.
A bit rude, but it was different.
The 70s. I grew up in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
The music was brilliant.
It was
we spoke earlier. We got bands like Shawaddy Waddy, Darts, Mud, Susie Quattro.
Yeah.
Then you had the disco era later on in the 70s and the punk era.
Yeah.
But you sort of survived all those different eras of music and moved with the times.
Well, see, with Guys and Dolls, I used to keep saying, we've got to change the music, we've got to move on. Yeah. But we were knocking it off. There was a huge cabaret circuit all over the UK. Batley Variety Club was probably one of the best clubs in the country. Yeah. They got top acts, acts from America coming in, Motown acts and things like that. It was a really great time for live music.
I suppose one of the most memorable hits for me, I think it was in the 80s, I think when you reformed Dollar or started singing again, was L'Amour.
Oh, L'Amour, yes.
We're going to watch a clip of that now because that's one of my favourite tunes. Okay. It's in my head. David, does that bring back memories?
Yeah, that actually looks like Brighton Pier, but it's actually Worthing Pier.
Yeah.
And I was born in Brighton, and I used to commute, I might have told you this, but I used to commute to London to go to school, to the Italia Conti.
That's a drama school?
Yeah, a stage school. And I was there with Lena Zavaroni, Bonnie Langford at the time. And, well, as I say, I used to travel back and forth on the train. It took me about 2 or 3 hours every day from about the age of 13 to about 16.
Well, paid off then. But look, you know, in the 70s and 80s, being a pop star, you would have spent a considerable amount of time on top of the pops and around the BBC studio. So I've got to ask you this, because I'm you know...
I know what you're going to ask me.
Jimmy Savile. Did you ever come across Jimmy Savile back in the 70s and 80s? And what did you know about him?
Yeah, well, I did, yes. Well, I think what we all more or less knew today, I didn't know it was so young, some of the victims, shall we call them. We knew that, I mean, things were very different in the 60s and 70s. There was groupies, girls of 15 throwing themselves at pop stars and things like that. So it was a different time. And it was sort of more with the innocent in a way, but we just didn't know it was really the depths of his
There's a difference between groupies. I get that, and I know it's unacceptable, they was far too young, but there's a difference between groupies, but a predatory paedophile. He was actually targeting people,
Oh, yes.
vulnerable people, sick people,
Yeah.
going into hospitals.
Yeah. Well, he was sick. I mean, let's face it, he was, you know, depraved, really.
So looking back at that period in time, do you think, yeah, he was really bad?
I think most people have, yes, he was really bad, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
And I don't think everybody knew quite how bad he was, but everybody knew that he was certainly no angel.
So do you think the BBC at the time were probably too scared because he was too big of a star, you know, a big money spinner, a big earner for the Beeb, and you know, making lots and lots of money for himself as well? Do you think it was they sort of compromised their principles?
It's quite possible, but I think they just didn't really know the depths of it, to be fair to them. We knew, you know, things were going on, but not as bad as what eventually came out. You know, we're going to, like, was it not care homes he went to? Well, he went everywhere, didn't he, really? To be honest?
I think it was in Broadmoor as well, wasn't it?
Was
Hospitals.
it in the morgue?
Don't go there.
No.
But look, you know, as a pop star in the 70s and 80s, you look at the music today, I mean, I couldn't tell you what's in the top 10. What's number one at the moment, David? Do you know?
I've got no idea. Now, my daughter's in the business, and she's signed to Universal, and I say to her, well, you know, I don't know what's in the chart. Are your record in the chart? She says there's all these different types of charts. And the way... So the music's more or less doesn't change too much, the melodies, but production changes, lingo changes. We would say dame, doll, and now they say bitch and all sorts of things in tracks and records. But... it's not the same, and I think it must be harder now in some ways for an act than it was for me. Mine was quite. You got onto Radio 1, you know, they played your records, and
I think we live in an age now, David, where everybody wants to be a social media star, an Instagram star, a YouTube star, a Facebook star, a Twitter star, whatever. So there's so many people competing. Whereas back in the day, you had people who had that vision, if you like, learned a few instruments, learned how to sing, got together, got that lucky break, and actually got on. But you know, would you sooner be a pop star in the 70s and 80s or a pop star now?
I think I've had my time. You know, I enjoyed the 80s. It was a terrific music, still is, and lots of the acts are still out there working. I don't do too much myself because I do other things now in life.
So what we're going to do now, David, is come to one of my favourite parts of the show, Wokey of the Week. We pick 3 individuals or organisations which have been incredibly woke during the week. I've got them here, I've written them down. So the first one, you're going to pick the winner this week. Okay. So it's Dame Alison Rose with the shenanigans that's occurred this week with Nigel. So we know all about her. Yes. She's been saying things that she shouldn't have said. She broke confidentiality and shared information to whoever that would listen to her, probably. Then we've got the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. This is Harry and Meghan. Now, they've come out with, I mean, it's like a weekly nonsense slot with these pair. They're sort of suggesting now that when we have adverts on TV or wherever, that men should be seen washing pots and women should be seen doing manual jobs. I mean, my missus regularly sweeps the chimney. There's nothing wrong with that, but I wouldn't put it on.
You were a coal miner, weren't you?
I was a coal miner.
Yeah, you've done very well, haven't you? Eh? Deputy chairman of the Conservative Party. How did you get it?
I don't know. And then number 3, James O'Brien.
Right, James.
We put him on most weeks because he's just an irritating, horrible little man that sits on LBC with a face like a slap. Also making ridiculous comments about me and my colleagues. So he always goes on. He's one of these annoying creatures that so the choice is yours, David. It's Dame Alison Rose, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, or James O'Brien.
I think I'm going to go for... I mean, I do a lot of washing up at home because I'm a house husband a lot of the time.
With your nails,
And so I don't mind, but having to forced on people, their ideals. So I'm going to give it to... the Duke and Duchess of Sussex.
Well, if you're watching Harry and Meghan, Wokey of the Week, awarded by David Van Day, pop legend from the 80s, you are Wokies of the Week. So don't go away. Coming up after the break, we've got Stephen Pound, ex-Labour MP, and Alex Burghardt, current Conservative MP.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
the Jubes & Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, from 9:30 on Sunday morning. In an exclusive interview, I'll be quizzing former Home Secretary Priti Patel on everything from the government's Rwanda plan to whether the Tories should ditch net zero. And after the sensational resignations of the heads of both Coutts Bank and the NatWest Group, I'll be joined by Nigel Farage, who'll tell me what's next for him in his fight against woke banks. All that and more with me, Camilla Tominey, from 9:30 on Sunday morning.
Welcome back, and still with me is former Labour MP Stephen Pound, and we've got the MP for Brentwood and Ongar, Alex Burgott. Alex, we're going to get straight into it, no messing about this time. Listen, white working class boys are one of the most left behind groups of young people in this country. They're pretty good when it comes to mining coal, traditionally, pretty good when it comes to making steel, you know, fishing, doing all the dangerous, dirty, horrible jobs, and pretty useful when it comes to fighting world wars, going over the top and getting killed in their thousands. But in normal times, like we are today, they seem to get left behind. Why do you think that is?
It's a really good question, Lee, and it's one I thought about a lot. My parents are both teachers. My dad ran a very tough school in Southampton, and you're absolutely right. We've got a group of young white boys who come from households where they don't have very much money. They don't tend to do so well at school, and I think it's partially to do with some families. You know, if you had a bad experience at school, you're quite distrustful of the education process, and when your child comes home and they're complaining about the school, you tend to take their side rather than the school's side. You have schools where there isn't very good communication between parents and the schools. But really, I think we haven't always given them the kind of the courses and the jobs to look out for in their area, which is what Levelling Up's about. And when I was Minister of Skills, it was one of the things that we were looking into. And still, you know, Rob Halfon, who's now doing a very good job carrying that on. And I'll give you an example. Ben Houchin, right, who's mayor in Teesside, he's worked with big companies to get them into the free port that the government set up in the area on the understanding that those companies work with the local college to provide the courses so that they can get the jobs in the Freeport. And that means that you've got that line of sight. You can say to the young lads who are at college, here's the company, here's the job, it's in your area, you know, it's something to aspire to. There's a clear path, which is what it was like when young people were going to go and work in the mines or in the factories. And we're starting to bring that back. And it's, you know, these aren't Mickey Mouse jobs. These are highly skilled. It's highly skilled labour, pays well, and there's a future in it. And I think that's the sort of conversation that you've got to be able to have.
Let me just go to our left in the corner, Stephen Pound, MP. Stephen.
I'll tell you what really gets me, Lee. Look, the problem is young, white, working-class kids aren't fashionable. They're actually frightened, some of the people who make policy in this country. We concentrate too much on other groups. Ludicrously, we concentrate on one of the most high-achieving groups, which is young Asian kids. Now, you put a very, very good point about the old heavy metal, the metal-bashing jobs. Back in the Navy, we used to want kids from Fratton and you know, the rough kids who actually did make very, very good sailors, very good soldiers. And you remember the old Kipling thing, it's Tommy this and Tommy that, and chuck him out, the brute, but the saviour of his country when the guns begin to shoot. I think the real problem is we've closed down the pits, we've closed down the heavy metal bashing, we've reduced the size of the armed forces, but we haven't filled the vacuum. We've got to give those people some proper chances, some real jobs. We've also got to stop being snobbish and looking down on white working classes, not sneering down. And there's too many people in this country sneer at working class people. We have a culture, we're perfectly entitled to the same thing as anybody else, and yet for some reason our faces don't fit, we're not fashionable. Back of the bus.
I tell you what, Stephen, I can't argue with a word you said. You sound like a conservative.
In that case, I retract.
You sound like a Conservative MP, actually, at the moment. Look, I want to come back to you, Alex. Apprenticeships. Now, back in the day, or back in the 90s and the noughties, Blair had this fantasy that 50% of people should go to university. And now, I don't know where he plucked that figure from, to be honest, but...
Because it sounded good.
Well, as a consequence of that, 20 years later, we've got a shortage of electricians, brickies, plumbers, whatever.
Yeah, look, and I went to university, had a great time, I learnt a lot, it was the making of me, and I want lots of other young people to have that opportunity too. But I also taught in universities, and it was clear that there were some young people there who didn't want to be there. They were there because their parents told them they ought to go, their teachers had told them they ought to go, and they wanted to be building their career straight off, and I think what we're starting to do with modern apprenticeships is create that other path. Because you leaving school, some people are going to go straight into jobs, some people are going to go to university, and some people need to have a mix where you're training on the job, you're getting that real experience. And you know, the apprenticeships we have now are a really great offer. You're not running up debt. You're going to be 3 years ahead, 3 years further up the career ladder than the people who've been to university. And a lot of them lead to really well-paid jobs.
And you know what, Alex? A lot of these kids that do these apprenticeship schemes are actually earning more money than graduates.
Absolutely, that's right.
But let me bring Stephen back in, because Stephen, I know you served in the Navy, and obviously, you know, doing that as a young man, pretty similar to me going down a coal mine, you would have seen lots of white working class young men, kids, who probably not had the best education, but were incredibly clever and smart and problem solvers.
Absolutely, and that's absolutely spot on. Look, I mean, the thing is, my son's a Sparky. I mean, you know, when he was about 16, you know, I said, you know, are you going off to university? He said, no, never mind that, Dad. You know, I want to make some money, and he's earning more as a Sparky than I am. Yeah, but look, the thing is, it's the talent that people have in the Navy back in the 60s. You know, a lot of them weren't even literate. I mean, we had a lot of lads, you know, from Glasgow, from Newcastle, from Portsmouth, and you know, if you could read and write, they try to get you into the intelligence section quickly. But the thing is, we actually cherish those people because they had real life skills. No disrespect to Alex, you know, he's written some good books, you know, and he's a real, you know, he's an intellectual. And we need intellectuals, but we also need people who can get their hands dirty and get the oil under the fingertips.
So, Stephen, why is it, in this day and age, we really struggle to recruit for the armed forces?
Mostly because the armed forces have set their bar a lot higher. I mean, in my day, the only thing you needed, to be fair, was a pulse. You know, they'd pretty much take you for whatever you were. It's very, you know, and don't forget, in my days, I mean, the Navy was like an industrial force. It was like being down the pit, but with the added fear of drowning. I mean, and so, but the reality is that, you know, Nowadays, you have to be highly skilled, multitasking. Basically, the Royal Marines are the future of the armed forces, and they are multi-skilled. So they've set the bar a lot higher. But that isn't the answer. I mean, the answer is getting shot at the public schools, getting shot at the grammar schools, and having really, really good comprehensive education so everybody comes onto the playing field on the basis of equality.
Well, it's interesting you say that about grammar schools. I'm a big believer that we should have grammar schools because I believe that increases social mobility. What do you think to that, Alex?
Yeah, I believe in grammar schools. We've got some good grammar schools in Essex where where my constituency is, but they're not the be-all and end-all. And we've seen the reforms that Michael Gove brought in after 2010. We now have some really fantastic comprehensive schools in this country who are providing a world-class education to people from all types of background. And I think that's got to be, it's absolutely got to be part of the mix. You want to have, we've got some really fantastic specialist maths colleges now, which are creating the next generation of super boffins. Those kids are going to go on, have amazing careers. But you also, we all want the local school to be as good as it can possibly be. And, we need people to be leaving with more than basic skills.
Apprenticeships at 14?
I think, look, you've got to understand in education that different people are going to have different stepping off points. And the more that we can create that variety in the system that enables people to kind of build their own life story, the better. And I went to, years ago now, I went to a pupil referral unit in South London. These kids being kicked out of everywhere, and fantastic head teacher had stripped everything away, said you're going to learn to read and write, and here is the bricklaying studio, here is the mechanics workshop, here's the chair where you can learn how to do hairdressing, here's the kitchen where you can learn to cook, and you're going to get these skills and then you're going to get a job. And that was what turned those kids' lives around.
Fascinating discussion. Could talk about this all day, but this show is about talking to people in the real world. They don't come much realer than Gary Fisher, Gary the Cabbie. We're going to go to Gary next. How you been this week then, Gary?
Yeah, good, thank you, Lee.
So, obviously been picking loads of people up this week. What have they been chatting about?
Yeah, this week, Lee, a lot of people have been talking about the difference in what's good for the rich and what's good for the not so rich, i.e. the chief executive and NatWest.
Oh, dear. So I guess you're talking about the Farage thing, you're talking about the banking scandal. Come on, Gary, you're full of common sense. What's your solution?
Well, look, Lee, let's be straight there. If this was, say, Gloria sitting at any bank in London on the desk, her brother Joe Bro rings up and says to her, Gloria, give me some information on Joe Bloggs, please. She's been with the bank 30 years. What would happen? Well, she would be sacked, probably be arrested for going against the Data Protection Act. What happens with the rich? She gets a payoff of $5 million and walks away scot-free.
Not only that, Gary, I mean, even if this was a young teller working for the post office that had been there 6 months, I think they would have been sacked as well. This is just basic stuff, isn't it?
100%. And that's what I'm saying to you. It's one rule for the rich and one rule for everyday person.
Now, you're a cabbie driver. You meet hundreds of people a month, if not thousands. Would you ever divulge any information of one of your punters to another punter?
What goes on in the black cab stays in the black cab.
There you go. There's more common sense from Gary. Listen, don't go away. Next we've got On the Pull with socialite Lizzie Cundy and 80s pop legend David Van Day.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners on TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my new show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m, where real people get to meet those in power and hold them to account. Every week, we'll be hearing your views from up and down the country in the real world. Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything, I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
On Mark Dolan tonight, the decision to cancel Nigel Farage's bank account is the tip of the woke iceberg. The radical left, who millions of Labour supporters also can't stand, are infecting all our institutions. Welcome to hell. In my Take at 10, my reaction to the shocking audio recording of Mr. Nice Guy TV chef James Martin yelling and swearing at his staff. My Mark Meets guest is football legend and freedom campaigner Matt Le Tissier. Plus TV legend Sue Cook, my top pundits and the papers. We're live from 9.
Well, that must be the bell. It's time for Last Order, joined by the very lovely Lizzie Cundy. Lizzie, massive TV media star. On everything that you turn on the TV these days, I seem to see Lizzie Cundy.
I'm like water. I get everywhere, you see? I'm like water.
Also described as a socialite. What's a socialite?
A socialite.
And how do I apply to be one?
Would you like to be a socialite? Well, come on the red carpet with me, pose like a teapot, and you go to lovely events. But I'm usually working. I'm usually like doing interviews on the red carpet, but I'm more now in the studio, as you know.
And enjoying it?
Yeah, I love it.
Okay.
I love it. Yeah, I love all the current affairs.
So you've got a particular opinion on certain things, a little bit conservative on
I can be, but you know, nowadays what's conservative? They're sort of light blue, aren't they? But I am a true conservative. I just think at the minute they're just that so liberal. There's like a cigarette paper between.
Let's talk about one of your old muckers, which is Meghan.
Oh, Meghan Markle,
yes.
yes.
So we saw this week they've been mentioned tonight on the show on Wokey of the week actually that her and Harry want to see adverts where men are doing the washing up and women are doing manual jobs. Now, there's nothing wrong with women doing so-called men's jobs and vice versa, but why are they pushing this nonsense?
Well, they are pushing this nonsense because I think they've got to talk about something and they love all this wokeness. Yeah. But for me, look, I'm really happy. My ex-husband used to always be in the kitchen cooking, but I don't really want to mow the lawn. I just don't know why they're telling us how to behave and what to do and listen to their narrative all the time. It's all full of this woke nonsense.
Is it possibly because they're trying to stay relevant every day and look at those clicks, that attention, you know, people have got better things to do, I think, personally, and keep, listening about Meghan and Harry, but they seem to want to be relevant all the time.
Well, I think so, and they've got to. Look, they've had a tough time. Look what's happened with Spotify, Netflix.
A tough time?
No, well, they've been dropped, they've been dropped. I know, well, they're always whinging and moaning in their huge
There's people in my constituency having a tough time. They've been able to afford their electric bill and gas bill.
Exactly.
stuff like that.
No, well, I mean, they're always moaning and whinging, aren't they? They're always like the victims. And they're having to reinvent themselves. And actually, they're going very different routes because Harry's off to do a documentary in Africa. And Meghan's got this new Hollywood agent and wants to get back doing what she used to do. So they're going very different paths. But I think, as you said, they've got want to be, you know, in the news. And lately, the news hasn't been that great.
Do you think she was prepared for how hard it is to be a princess? You know, there's a lot of work involved. I mean, it's not swinging a shovel or doing stuff like that, but it's a lot of time. Your life's totally gone. You've got to do all these other things, these social events. You've got to go to civil events as well. There's a lot involved.
Yeah, it's very hard being a royal, and I think she thought it was all going to be glamorous and glitter and diamonds and tiaras, and it is hard work. It's very different from being a celebrity princess to a royal princess, and I think she really didn't understand what it took. But she did know the royal family. I mean, when she was young, there's pictures of her outside Buckingham Palace, and apparently she had a big poster of Prince William on her wall growing up, I've heard. So,
know that one.
Yes. But the thing is with Meghan, I think, you know, what Meghan wants, Meghan gets, and she really wanted to be top of the ladder, and I've heard she's trying to do this political career.
Yeah.
But, you know, everyone she knew, like the Obamas, are kind of distancing themselves
she's
from...
coming across as a bit of a nuisance at the moment.
Bit of a nuisance, and just, you know, I think trashing the royal family, I think she's...
Unforgivable.
You know, it's unforgivable.
But let's talk about your past. Lizzie, in a good way, but a sad way as well,
Yes.
because you had a friend 20-odd years ago who suffered from a condition called cystic fibrosis.
Yes,
You tell me, well, I know the story, that she had a heart and double lung transplant.
She did.
It's a subject close to my heart, because you probably know that my wife, she's got CF, and she had a double lung transplant nearly 7 years ago now. She's doing really, really well. But
I'm so pleased.
It didn't work out so well for your friend,
Well,
did it?
no wonder. Well, she was a force of light. Such a great fun, full of, you know, life, and never felt sorry for herself. Had cystic fibrosis. I grew up with her. I grew up with nuns, and actually the nuns told me not to be friends with her because we were going to lose her early. We thought we were going to lose her at 14, but she went on till 27.
Okay.
But sadly got the heart and lung transplant too late.
Okay.
But I do lots of work for cystic fibrosis, and you know, we'll do anything to help the
that's
cause.
brilliant.
And I'm so glad your wife's transplant went well.
Thank you very much. Now it's time for On the Pull, and we're going to be joined by 80s pop legend David Van Day. What a shock! You didn't expect that.
The 80s to 70s.
So hello.
I'm still going.
You're still going?
It's still going. Look, we've got 2 pint pots.
Right.
Yeah.
The challenge is simple. You've got to just get over the tap, pull a
A
pint.
bit simple, like David.
Pull a pint and slap it on the bar. That's it. So,
All right, we're doing this.
in your own time. Go for it.
But I've never done this before.
matter.
Can I get a bit of a
It's not
hint
the
how
winning,
to
Lizzie.
do it?
It's the taking part.
Okay.
Well, I'm very competitive.
So David,
though.
you've been in politics a while.
Yes,
involved.
that's true.
Are you standing again?
Yeah, in fact, oddly enough, I'm trying to concentrate.
Talking about odd, that's very odd.
I've got a selection.
Listen, come on, let's have these on here. This is just ridiculous.
That looks like a milkshake.
Yeah.
Honestly.
What the hell? Oh my God, David, yours is worse than mine.
No, I've got a selection, because you have to be selected before you can get elected, don't you, by your
So
own
you're going
party?
through the selection process?
Yeah, so
Okay.
it happens on Monday. So
I don't know where
hopefully.
I don't know where the proprietor is of the pub, but if Adam sees that, he's losing money. I know we're first. But there's only one word to describe that, and that is pathetic.
Please don't tell Adam.
Shocking.
Okay. Well, maybe we can do something
Can
else.
I have
can
another
sing.
go?
No.
I'll come back and sing.
Oh, no, please don't do that.
We'll stick with the beer, thanks.
You know, you
David.
can go off people, is it?
Okay. Right, scores on the doors. I ain't even getting the blackboard
The
out
green goddess.
this week. I'm not getting the blackboard out because they are so pathetic. I can't even give them 0. So I'm sorry, guys.
Mine's beating. Mine's coming up. Look,
It's awful.
I'm rising.
Absolutely.
You are rising.
Final
Sorry,
word.
mine's
Final word. That's the end of On the Pull. It's 0 each.
Oh.
0? No way.
Well, that's all for this week's Real World with Lee Anderson, but a big thank you to all my guests. Look, if you've got a pub like this and you want us to come along with GB News and these brilliant guests, then please let me know on GB Views at GB News, and we'll fill it full of common sense. But next week I'm back at 7 p.m. on GB News with some great guests, Martin Daubney, Tom Hunt MP, we've got the model Dinah Moran, also known as the Green Goddess, and the country's most loved town crier, Tony Appleton. And of course, also joining us next week, we've got Gary the Cabbie. Gary, can you take me to Ashfield, please?
No problem.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Hope you were able to enjoy some of the sunnier spells we did see around today, but into the weekend there is the increasing chance that we see some showers, and that is all thanks to this area of low pressure that is pushing its way in from the northwest. Those isobars squeezing together, so it will turn quite blustery into the weekend as well, and those frontal systems that you saw bringing in swaves of showers. First thing during the overnight period for parts of western Scotland down into northern England and Wales. Also the potential for another band pushing across southeast England. Just some uncertainty in regards to the positioning of that one, but definitely some heavy pulses of rain possible first thing on Saturday. Not going to be a cold night at all, actually pretty mild in the southeast, but slightly fresher further towards the west, lows of around 12 to 13 degrees Celsius. Saturday then turns into a day of sunshine and showers for the vast majority of us, particularly for Northern Ireland and Western Scotland. That's where we'll see the most frequent showers, potential for those to turn heavy with some hail and thunderstorms as well. With those blustery winds, though, across all areas, those showers will be pushing through relatively quickly, so still some sunny spells around, and in that sunshine, climbing to highs between 19 and 24 degrees Celsius. That main low pressure centre stays with us through Sunday as well. Some heavier showers for southern Scotland down into northern England, but we're then focusing our attention on this area of rain that's going to start pushing its way in from the southwest. Again, got to watch the exact timings of that, but certainly could turn quite damp for Wales, southwest England later on. Further showers into the new week as well. That's all for now. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain